Well, today, everybody, in this video, we're going to take a trip down memory lane, and we're going to be talking about what I'm going to call my forgotten baritone. Let's revisit my 30-inch Balaguer Toro Select custom guitar. This guitar is very important to me, and it has a nice, middle ground with my trajectory and my overall, discovery and or story with baritone guitars. And you longtime viewers, you guys who've been around since 2021, early 2022, you guys have seen this guitar. But in case you're new here, I really haven't played this guitar honestly in well over a year and a half, almost 2 years. So I figured I would dust off the cobwebs, tune it up, set it up, and riff on it today. Let's do exactly that real quick. So this guitar is literally my second incarnation or second rendition in terms of discovering baritone guitars. And what I mean by that is this. My first love for baritone guitars really was my Squier Vintage Modified Baritone Jazzmaster. That guitar is really really special to me, and when you think of me and my playing, especially in the baritone land, most people will think of that guitar. So when given the opportunity to become a Balaguer Guitars artist in early 2021, I was so honored and thankful for the opportunity. So the day was Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2021. I signed the contract, and then that night I built this guitar. I'm trying to put it in frame. It's a big one. I built this guitar on the website, and I sent it over to Balaguer Guitars, right? So this model is a Select Custom 30-inch baritone. We have a roasted maple bolt-on neck. At the time, it had different pickups. We're going to talk about the pickups here in a second. But 30 inches, hip shot bridge, locking tuners, ebony board, stainless steel frets, glow-in-the-dark, side dot lumen lace, binding around the body, and a flat top. So I built this guitar on Cinco de Mayo 2021, and it didn't show up to my house till give or take I think March 12th or something like that of 2022. So I was chomping at the bit for a long time, anticipating for this guitar to show up. And then I went out and took it out on tour and did a whole bunch of different shows with it. And you can see there's in up close shots, there's a lot of Carhartt Carhartt overall rash. It's not buckle rash. But, that's when I first started wearing the Carhartts, and that kind of scuffed up this guitar a little bit. It's got some dings and imperfections along the way, and it looks like it had been played on tour for give or take a month, because it was. And then, shortly thereafter, when I got home, EMG asked if I wanted to check out the new J-Master set. That makes a lot of sense, and I was so honored and thankful for the opportunity, because I love EMG pickups. I've been playing them off and on for years and years, man, and I'm just so infatuated with EMGs. And these pickups sound great, man, because, say, in comparison to the Squier, those pickups are super high-endy and piercing. They sound great and they have a ton of clank, but it is the Achilles heel of that guitar. They're really high-endy and they're really noisy as well. Whereas with these pickups, they're a little bit rolled off on the high end and they're not as noisy. So this guitar, on paper, was a perfect amalgamation of everything I loved at the time. However, the main reason why I kind of started to put this guitar down was because of one build quality that has nothing to do with Balaguer guitars. It was my own doing and my own choice, and if I could go back, I would have changed one thing on this guitar, because this guitar, it's awesome and it plays great, but it's a bit uncomfortable for me personally. I love binding, for example. I love binding, right, guys? You guys know my vintage style and my vintage vibes, and honestly, that's what Balaguer guitars kind of leans into a lot. They're really into the vintage aesthetic, and that was huge for me. So I wanted the binding on this guitar, but there was no option for binding and a forearm contour. You could only get a forearm contour and no binding, or a flat top and binding. And I went with, obviously, this one. And if you look, this thing is really, really flat. And if you notice, look how not high up, for lack of a better description, look how close the bridge sits to the actual body. That became incredibly painful and exhausting, especially with, both my shoulders. I've had 4 shoulder surgeries, and to kick my arm out like this, especially in 2021, where I was still rehabbing a lot of my injuries and stuff, it really became a bit of a pain, literally, to play this guitar, because I'd have to kick my arm out and put my arm down and get around the flat top just to get to the hip shot to where I could palm mute and stuff like that. It wasn't so bad when I was standing up and playing shows and I had this guitar hanging off of me looking like, you know, Monkey or Head from Korn. But like when sitting down and being in the studio, it really became problematic and a bit cumbersome to play this guitar. So unfortunately, my own design flaw made this guitar really uncomfortable. And I'll say it one more time, it has nothing to do with Balaguer guitars. That was just something that, unfortunately, I had to do my own R&D to discover myself that, hey, a forearm contour is a necessity for me. So yeah, man, it was a bummer because, again, on paper, silver burst ebony board, EMG pickups, 30 inches. It's like this guitar was perfect for me. Unfortunately, just there's one design flaw that made it, you know, just a guitar that I wasn't gravitating towards. But with that being said, man, I owe this guitar a lot, and I'm very thankful to own this guitar. And this guitar taught me a lot about what I personally want with my own signature specs, I guess we'll say. You know, I always dreamed of this guitar to be in production or something close to this with Balaguer guitars. It wasn't in the cards at the time, but, you know, I value and appreciate Balaguer's, you know, time and efforts to have me on board for a couple of years. But what I learned from this guitar, I really put into my Cerberus Baritone that'll be coming out in early 2024. When Cerberus hit me up and said, hey, we'd love to build you a signature guitar, your first ever signature guitar. What do you want to do? I immediately, like, mentally went to this guitar, and this guitar was just like the perfect prototype and or blueprint for me. Where this guitar was almost perfect for me, but with a few tweaks, we could really get it, you know, 100% rock solid on the first go round. So yeah, this forgotten baritone, we'll say, like, we went all over the country together, made some great riffs. The song Full Life on my first album was recorded on this guitar. It was the last song of my first album, Chronic Pain. Full Life was recorded on this guitar, so I made it on the album. You know, this guitar and I, we have a nice little story together. And yeah, man, I owe a lot to Balaguer guitars, and this guitar specifically, because it made me learn, you know, and appreciate some of the things that you know, I was unaware of with designing a guitar. So everybody, with that being said, that's the story of this forgotten baritone, my 30-inch Select Custom Balaguer Toro. Love this. Sometimes I forget how long this thing is. That's what she said. But yeah, everybody, I kind of lost my train of thought there. This guitar is cool, man. I really sincerely love it. I had this dream of, like, maybe taking it to somebody or you know, doing something where, like, I could get a forearm contour and somebody could, like, it doesn't even have to look pretty, but if somebody could just, like, make this not so flat, you know, I think I would love this guitar a lot more. So, you know, it's interesting. But yeah, man, I learned a lot from this guitar. So if you found this video fun, educational, informational, and if you just enjoyed hanging out with me, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button, all right? With that being said, everybody, I'm out of here. See you guys in the next video. Later.